Hey, how you doing, Ken?
I'm good, how are you?
I am well. That was a foxy coyote.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. Some kind of mute.
Yeah, are you in here? Or are you over there?
I think it's supposed to be, let me talk to you again. Oh.
Hi, we have one person who's called in. Can you?
Yes.
Great. And
Can I?
is there a bill you'd like to testify on?
Yes, I would like to testify to support LD 2162, an act to restore honor to certain service members.
Great. And can I get
Senator,
your name, please? Oh, sorry, can we get your name?
yes, Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, and honorable members of Veterans and Legal
We're
Affairs
actually-
Committee.
Hold on. We're actually not started yet, but we just wanted to get your
Oh.
name so we can sign you up for later.
Understood. Florence S. Edwards.
Oh, okay. Okay, and do you want to do both bills, Florence? 2145 and 2162, or just one?
Just the 2162, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, good morning. Welcome everybody to the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. We have a quorum present of 7 members in the room. And so we will start the hearing and we'll take a short break while people walk back to their other rooms, and then we'll do committee introductions. So we'll take a quick recess while we get settled in.
Hey, Steve. still on the phone, Haley? Answer it. Who was it? Oh. Oh. No, he didn't. Okay, no, maybe it's phone. If it rings, just answer it and tell busy.
There it goes. Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. Thanks for your patience as we've gotten ready to do this public hearing by Zoom for the first time. My name's Louis Lucchini. I represent most of Hancock County in the state Senate. Before we get to the committee proceedings, we'll do committee introductions. And so I will call on a member and then they can, for those who are on their own device, can unmute themselves and say their name and where they're from. So we'll begin with co-chairman, Representative Schneck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Representative John Schneck, representing HD 126 in Central Bangor.
Representative Strom.
Good morning. I'm Representative Scott Strom from House District 106, which is Clinton, Detroit, and Pittsfield.
Representative McCrate.
Oh, all it took was you walking over here. Hi, I'm Jay McCrate, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and part of Brunswick in the House.
Great. So we have Representative Ackley, looks like, in the building.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm Kent Ackley, son of Monmouth, adopted son of the towns of Litchfield and Wales.
We've got Representative Hickman.
Good morning. I'm Craig Hickman. I represent District 81, Winthrop, Reedfield, and a part of North Monmouth at the foot of Mount Pisgah.
Great. Representative O'Connell.
Good morning, my name is, Mr. Chairman, Kevin O'Connell from 128, City of Brewer.
We have Senator Searway.
Yeah, I'm Senator Scott Searway and represent District 16, Waterville, Winslow, Fairfield, Benton, and Unity Township.
Great, thank you. And with us, as always, is our committee analyst, Janet Stocco, as well as our committee clerk, Karen Montel. And for those viewing, we also have Nick and Anthony from IT, whose boxes are also on the screen. So before we get started, we'll kind of go through some of the procedures that we use for these Zoom hearings. So obviously we're streaming this on YouTube for those who aren't taking part in the Zoom webinar. So as a general rule of thumb, so that the sound won't be difficult for people watching, if you're currently on the Zoom webinar, if you can please mute yourself when you're not speaking, that'll prevent feedback. If your video or audio is on, just a reminder, even if the committee is not in active session or is on break, the public can see and hear you. And in the appropriations room, we'll be using a different procedure where we leave our computers on mute, sorry. If any of the committee members are having any technical issues with your devices, you can direct those to the legislature's IT office, not to the committee clerk or analyst, because they're going to be doing other things. We have a pink sheet, which should be up in your folders. On the back, that gives you some tips for technical assistance during these Zoom meetings. And it gives the number for IT if you're having any issues hearing or streaming the proceedings. You can also use the chat feature, and that will be able to go to IT as well. Great, so our agenda today, we're going to have public hearing on 2 bills, and then we're going to have a language review and a work session. So as we mentioned, we already had the quorum established. What we're going to do is begin the public hearing on LD. We'll begin the public hearing on LD 2162, an act to restore honor to certain service members. And for this bill, the bill sponsor is Speaker Gideon. And we will welcome Speaker Gideon to come and present her bill. Here we go. Welcome.
Thank you, Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, and distinguished members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. I'm Sarah Gideon, and first I want to thank you very much for conducting this and the other public hearing you have in front of you today under unusual circumstances, and for how quickly you are able to adapt to these circumstances. So I represent the town of Freeport and also part of Pownell, and have the distinct honor of serving as the Speaker of the main house. But today I am here to present my bill, an act to restore honor to certain service members. In 2011, Congress repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and ended institutionalized discrimination against gay and lesbian members of the military. Yet thousands of individuals still bear the damage of that history of discrimination, either with their military records marked with discharges other than honorable, or with discriminatory discharge narratives that disclose their sexual orientation. Now, these discharges can disqualify service members from obtaining the benefits that they earned. While military discharge decisions can only be formally changed by the federal government, an act to restore honor to certain service members allows these veterans to apply to claim their main benefits. And that's why we're here today presenting this bill. This bill would require the director of the Maine Bureau of Veterans Services to establish a process for a veteran who separated from service without an honorable discharge, due solely to the veteran's sexual orientation or gender identity, and to have that discharge treated as an honorable discharge for purposes of determining the veteran's eligibility for rights, privileges, and benefits under state law. State benefits include Maine-specific tax exemptions and financial assistance, housing services, education programs, recreational programs, and others. And just as a side note, all of you should have a copy of these state benefits in your possession now. I understand that there is a technical amendment that is going to be proposed to bring definitions in line with the Maine Human Rights Act, and I want to just go on the record saying that I am in favor of those changes. Now, in addition, this group of people may not be the only group who could use assistance with their discharge status. That's why this bill also asks the director to explore whether other states have established processes for reviewing and potentially upgrading the discharge status for state law purposes of veterans who have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injury, or who have been diagnosed with psychological trauma resulting from sexual assault or sexual harassment during military service. As this committee well knows, the women and men who serve in our military deserve nothing but the recognition and benefits they have earned for their service. Unfortunately, for those in the LGBTQ+ community, that hasn't always been the case. With this measure, we are asserting here in Maine that that will not stand. We should be here for them, just as they have always been there for us. Additionally, the Bureau of Maine Veterans Services is highly skilled at connecting our veterans and their families with the benefits, services, and programs they've earned. One of the services they offer is assistance with is the discharge upgrade process, the formal process through the federal government that I mentioned above. Now, between the end of World War II and the 2011 repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it is estimated that more than 100,000 veterans were involuntarily discharged from service due to their sexual orientation. While many of those veterans affected by this policy would likely qualify for a discharge upgrade, there are few who have completed the process. By passing this bill and creating more awareness of the full slate of benefits Maine will offer, the Bureau of Veterans Services can encourage and facilitate that upgrade process for more of these deserving women and men. I'm confident the committee will consider these matters carefully, and I thank you so much for your time and attention, and respectfully ask that you support LD 2162. I know that there are just at least a couple of others who are testifying behind me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, but suspect that some of the questions, if more technical in nature, might be best answered by those who are following me.
Great. Thank you, Speaker Gideon. And so we will move to questions from the committee. And for those who are remote, if you just want to use the raise your hand feature, we'll be able to see that, Representative Schneck and myself. So are there any questions for Speaker Gideon? Seeing none, thank you, Madam Speaker. Okay, and now I don't believe we have any co-sponsors registered to sign up at this point. Okay, and so we're going to move to the public portion of the testimony. So anybody who wishes to testify should have signed up in advance according to the instructions for this hearing and would have been sent the Zoom link and will be signed in as attendees. If you weren't able to do that and you'd still like to submit written testimony, you can still submit it electronically through the testimony submission button at the home of the Maine Legislature's website. So we've gotten, I believe, 3 people signed up. So we'll begin with Kate Knox, followed by Florence Edwards, and then Dave Richmond.
Good morning.
Morning, Kate.
So you can hear me. Good. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to see everyone this morning. Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, members of the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans and Legal Affairs. My name is Kate Knox. I live in Portland, and I'm here today on behalf of Equality Maine, the statewide LGBTQ civil rights organization. It was founded in 1984 following the tragic murder of Charlie Howard, a young man who was thrown off a bridge in Bangor just because he was gay. We have been advocating on behalf of Maine's LGBT community for 36 years, and we have more than 70,000 members across the state of Maine. Equality Maine supports LD 2162, an act to restore honor to certain service members, and we'd like to thank Speaker Gideon very much for her leadership on this bill. And as she mentioned in her testimony, according to the Maine Bureau of Veterans Services, between the end of World War II and the 2010 repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, it is estimated that more than 100,000 veterans were involuntarily discharged from service due to their sexual orientation. Adding insult to injury, these service members were then denied the services and benefits they earned as members of our armed forces who fought to protect our country and defend our ideals. Following the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the federal government did set up a process by which veterans can apply to get reinstated and become eligible for the benefits they rightfully earned. From our conversations though with the Maine Bureau, it sounds like it takes on average of 3 years for someone to go through that process. That is far too long, and many veterans don't even know this option exists. Legislation to expedite these reinstatements has been introduced in Congress, every Congress since at least 2013, but it remains stalled. LD 2162 is before you today because veterans in Maine shouldn't have to keep waiting for Congress to act. This bill would require the director of the Maine Bureau of Veterans Services to establish a process for a veteran who's separated from service without an honorable discharge due solely to the veteran's sexual orientation or gender identity, and to have that discharge treated as an honorable discharge for the purposes of determining eligibility for rights, privileges, and benefits under state law. It is our understanding that the Bureau is in support of this bill because it would enable LGBTQ veterans to quickly access the state level benefits they've already earned. And in our conversations with them, they saw an additional benefit. If more veterans in Maine come forward in order to get those benefits, the Bureau could then begin the work of helping them to navigate the federal process for upgrading the status of their discharges, which would eventually result in the issuance of federal benefits as well. Other states that have passed bills like this have also extended benefits to veterans who received less than honorable discharges resulting from post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, or military sexual trauma. And while we at Equality Maine are not experts in these issues, we applaud the Bureau's willingness to examine the possibility of helping a wide range of veterans with less than honorable discharges due to these issues. We'd like to close by saying that LGBTQ people who serve our country and our armed forces deserve recognition, respect, and the benefits they earned for their service, just like all other veterans. Unfortunately, that hasn't always been the case. The current administration is still trying to kick transgender service members out of the military, and it is far too difficult to obtain benefits for many of the LGBTQ people who have served. Our state has long been a leader in recognizing that LGBTQ friends, family, co-workers, neighbors should be treated the same as everyone else. We urge you to make Maine a leader once more today by passing this bill. And finally, please find 2 attachments to my testimony. The first is the story of a Maine veteran, Lori, who shared her story with us. And I really hope you'll read it. It's powerful and highlights the issue that we're talking about today. And the second attachment is an amendment Speaker Gideon referenced, which just makes a technical fix to the bill by helping to clarify terms and definitions. I'd be happy to answer any questions about the amendment or our testimony or the issue generally. Thank you for your time.
Great, thank you, Kate. Any questions from committee members at this time?
Mr. Chair.
Representative Hickman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ms. Knight, for your testimony today. I was wondering if you knew the number of Mainers that have been dishonorably discharged because of their sexual orientation.
That's an excellent question. Thank you, Representative. I don't have that number in front of me. I believe the Bureau will be testifying and they may have it. However, if they don't, I'd be happy to do some research and get back to you.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Senator Searway.
Thank you for the testimony. I just have a question on, I know we get a lot of special groups and we look at equality. You mentioned equality. And what would be this? And also, how do you separate a person that's been dishonorably discharged and make it a required change when they went through a formal hearing and they don't get a formal hearing to get back? That seems like it'd be a very difficult for us to just require it to take it off, and that would be I just think that there's a lot of times more to the story for us just as a state to require something like and might be more detailed than just what it is, what you might.
Yeah, I thank you for that, Senator. I think, and I'll just give you a couple of thoughts and then defer to the Bureau. I think it's important. I think it's important part of the bill, which is that really it's the Bureau of Veteran Services. What we're asking them to do is establish a process for reevaluating those separations that happen without honorable discharge, and have them essentially take a look at that category of discharges. And if they determined in their process that the discharge was related to sexual orientation or gender identity, that they make the determination to have that discharge treated as an honorable discharge. And I think the difference is, and I'm not familiar with the federal process, but I imagine, given that it takes 3 years, that it is not a simple process to have those documents change and that discharge categorization changed. I think it's important to note we're not just saying we're going to change everybody's discharge category, but we are saying in this particular instance, where we had a monumental shift in our understanding of the impact of sexual orientation and gender identity in the military, and we now say that this should not be a reason for somebody to be forcibly discharged to the military, from the military, that we go back and correct those mistakes for that approximately 100,000 veterans, which I think is, I will ask the Bureau whether that 100,000 is Maine or a national number, I'm not sure. But I think that would be, the Bureau can talk about the process more than I can, but I think that would be my answer to your question.
Thanks. And we do have Director Richmond coming up in a bit who can walk us through the process as well. Representative Ackley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for your testimony, Ms. Knox. It seems that your testimony suggests that there is very little hope that the federal government is going to act anytime soon to restore justice for these folks. Currently, their policy corrects this injustice. It's simply the folks who historically have been penalized prior to the 2012 implementation. Would you care to elaborate exactly what the logjam is in terms of getting the federal government to act?
Well, smarter minds than I can maybe opine on why there's a logjam in Congress, but I would just say that this is one of those issues that while I believe in my testimony, I said it's 2013, it has been introduced over and over and over again, but it just remains stalled. And the reason for that stalling, I think, is complex and has to do with how bills are brought up and who allows bills to be brought up and debated and things like that, which we're all aware of. But I think the reality is we don't see that changing anytime soon. And those efforts for 7 years mean that people are not able to access any of the benefits unless they go through this cumbersome federal process. While we don't have the authority right now to fix the cumbersome federal process, we do have the authority to at least give these folks access to the state process. And I thought, you know, the Bureau's observation in our discussions with them that it would help them identify these folks and maybe provide additional assistance to work through that federal process is also important. So while we continue to advocate on the federal level, and that will continue to happen, I think it's also incumbent on us. These are people who need access to benefits. So at the same time, we need to be identifying every avenue we can to get folks the benefits they deserve, even understanding that it may not be everything they deserve.
Thank you. Any further questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Kate, for your testimony. Next up on the sign up list is Florence Edwards, and then we'll go to Dave Richmond.
Hello, Senator Lucchini. Thank you. Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, and honorable members of Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is Florence S. Edwards, DDS. I am the Managing Clinical Director at Aspen Dental, Topsom office, and I live in Portland, Maine. I am also an Army veteran who was a recipient of the Health Professions Scholarship Program. I'm here today to testify in favor of LD 2162, an act to restore honor to certain service members. I served on both sides of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was highly aware that not being able to talk about my life outside of my profession made me seem distant to fellow officers. I often struggled to fit in, living a positive life in fear I would disclose my sexual preference. I was fortunate to serve and just as fortunate to leave with an honorable discharge on my DB 214. I, like many other LGBTQ plus veterans, have a family history of serving our country. I am sure that service members appealing a dishonorable discharge for LGBTQ plus issues would thoroughly appreciate the acceptance and appreciation of their service in Maine as they wait for federal acceptance. Many sacrifices are made as a closeted service member, in addition to the sacrifices all soldiers make. The stress of losing your job and the possibility of losing your benefits when you are a veteran are real and intense. Being on the other side of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, I felt the release of that pressure, and I worked hard to keep my family's military legacy intact. By being able to have an honorable discharge, I was able to have access to free counseling from local veteran services and free access to Maine's beautiful state parks. That therapy was needed after years of living in secret, living in fear, only because I'm a woman who loves women. Being in nature also spiritually was cathartic. The open space, the crashing waves, wiping away years of daily stress. I know that fellow veterans that serve during Don't Ask, Don't Tell need access to mental health care and the plethora of services that are available to our military veterans. I implore you to vote in favor of LD 2162. Thank you so much for your time.
Great. Thank you, Florence, for coming in today and, of course, for your service and sharing that story. Any questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none, thank you again for coming in today. Next up, we have Dave Richmond from the Department of Defense, Veterans, and Emergency Management. welcome Director Richmond. Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me okay?
We got you.
All right. Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, and honorable members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is David Richmond. I'm the director of the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services. I'm here today to testify in favor of LD 2162, an act to restore honor to certain service members. The bill before you today requires the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services to establish a process for a veteran who separated from service without an honorable discharge, due solely to the veteran's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, to have that discharge treated as an honorable discharge for purposes of determining the veteran's eligibility for state benefits. Between the end of World War II and the repeal of 2011 Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, it is estimated that over 100,000 veterans nationally were involuntarily discharged from service due to their sexual orientation. Many veterans affected by this policy likely qualify for a discharge upgrade, but unfortunately, few have completed the process. For those who are unfamiliar with the discharging process of the military, each service member is given a DD-214 upon separation. That document is significant because it not only verifies service in the United States military, it also provides entitlement to various veterans benefits. Those benefits include health, housing, home loans, education benefits, and employment assistance. Eligibility for various veterans benefits is linked to the type of discharge from service listed on the DD-214. This is sometimes also referred to as the character of discharge. Any veteran who has attempted to attain their service records on their own, from making corrections on these records or updating their medals on the awards, knows firsthand that the process of working with individual branches of the military takes time. The Maine Bureau of Veteran Services is ready and willing to establish a state application process administered out of our central office to provide state veterans benefits to Maine veterans who are treated unfairly due to their sexual orientation. The Bureau has successfully worked with veterans to upgrade the status of their discharges. These upgrades have resulted in the issuance of both federal and state benefits, and the veterans who were able to assist, we were able to assist, are extremely grateful for the service. It is our hope that any veteran who wishes to upgrade their discharge status will come to one of our 6 field offices and meet with a veteran service officer to discuss their individual circumstance. Our team of VSOs are extremely professional and have a track record of success when representing veterans. Maine's veterans make a significant contribution to our communities and the Bureau remains committed to working with our partners on the state and federal levels to honor their service. I thank you for taking the time to hear this testimony on this important topic and would be happy to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Director Richmond. Just one question on the bill. So obviously this was intended to be heard, several months ago. And Section 3 of the bill requires you to fill out or to complete a report. And the date is January of 2021. So obviously this won't, if we do come back in, it won't become law until probably December. So I'm assuming the department would probably need a little more time than that, given the delays of the legislative session. Is that?
If we had to come up with the report by January, we could. But if it's doable to push it out, that would help. I think it would allow us to do a deeper dive on the look at the other states and what they're doing.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think a deeper dive would be great. And maybe if we were able to push it out to May, would that be a better date? That would still come back to us in the middle of the next legislative session.
That would work great.
Great, thanks, Director. Any questions from the committee members? Senator Searway.
You're muted, Senator.
Senator Searway, if you can unmute yourself, that would be great. I can't control that from here. Thanks. I think you hit it twice. You're still muted.
There?
There you go. You're good.
Okay. The question I have is, you mentioned any veteran, and to me that spells equal to everyone. And the question I have in dishonorable discharges, sometimes there's more to the story than just maybe the sexual preference that gets them dishonorable discharge. And I just was wondering on requirements, when I require it for a special group, how's that work compared to, like you mentioned, any veteran you'd be willing to review?
Thank you for the question, Senator Searway. I think a good way to look at it would be, I did read that the story that Lori shared in Kate's testimony. And when you read through her particular situation, she talks about being a veteran in the Air Force, serving in military police. And in her account, she was discharged and received in some type of discharge that was other than honorable, and solely for her sexual orientation. This bill is created for that situation. The way I would propose to administer it is, it would be handled out of our central office, and we would have a team of senior leaders that would, after a short, simple application process, we would obtain the service members' record, their service records, and our panel would read through the record, because the record will contain anything that was of concern, like issues that you're talking about. And it'll allow us to see situations like Lori's. And in a case like that, we can act with this, if this legislation is enacted, we could act on that and give Lori benefits, state benefits now. And we could help her through the federal process concurrently. We could, and you all should know that the Department of Defense has established a streamlined process for decisioning character of discharge upgrades that are related to LGBTQ or military sexual trauma, PTSD, TBI, and any conduct that can be traced back to those issues, and or that the member was LGBTQ. Those are streamlined and acted on quicker than the 3 years that you heard in Kate's testimony. And just so you know, that process takes anywhere from 15 months to 3 years or more. But in those certain situations, the DoD is streamlining those and acting on them quicker than the individual branches would have otherwise.
Just to follow up,
Yep, go ahead, Senator.
So what you're saying is streamlined?
What was that, Senator?
It's already being streamlined?
The federal process is, but it still takes 15 months at the earliest, and it could take much longer than that. Years.
So on the state level, how's the process work for you right now?
Well, we don't have any authority right now to change the character of discharge the way the state views it. But what I propose is the service member would give us the authority to receive their service record, and our senior leaders in the Bureau would review it to determine the cause for their discharge. And if it was related to LGBTQ we would have the authority under this legislation to consider them honorably discharged for our state benefits.
Right, and Senator, kind of to your point, just for reference, the bill does say that the person separated from service without an honorable discharge due solely to the veteran's sexual orientation or gender identity. So that part is in there as well.
Okay.
Representative Hickman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director, for your testimony. Just a few quick questions. Do you know how many Mainers have been discharged under Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Representative Hickman, thank you for the question. No, I don't. When I was helping the sponsor put together data on when they were submitting this legislation, we looked at how many other than honorable discharges, how many dishonorable, how many other than honorable, how many bad conduct type of discharges we have in Maine right now with the case management system that we have. And I have, I can't lay my fingers on it right now, but I can have it for the work session. And we can only infer a percentage of that number would be affected by being discharged because of their sexual orientation or something of that nature. So we don't have that particular piece of information, but I can give you an idea of the entire population that we have in our case management system that has a bad conduct discharge of some type. And I'll have that for the work session.
That'd be great, thank you. And this, you need the statutory authority to do this, even though Don't Ask, Don't Tell has been repealed at the federal level.
We do, and the reason is, here again, in Lori's situation, if she has an other than honorable discharge, we can't give her many of the state benefits that we otherwise could right now. But if we had the authority to consider her service honorable because of the situation surrounding her discharge, then we would.
And my final question, Mr. Chair, is if we didn't pass this law and people were able to get their separation updated at the federal level, would they then be able to qualify for state benefits?
Yeah, yes, they would. And that, I want to make it clear that the first thing we're going to do, and we've been trying to get the word out on all of the channels that we have, Facebook, our website, that we're ready to go right now. Our VSOs are standing by, and we can connect you with resources like Pine Tree Legal for any veteran that feels like they were treated unfairly in their discharge process. Particularly for veterans who were discharged because of LGBTQ. We are ready to do that right now. And even if this legislation is passed, we're going to do that first. We're going to get their federal process going, because if this legislation is passed, it's only going to affect their state benefits. If they're federally upgraded to an honorable status, they get all of their federal benefits and all of their state benefits.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions from committee members? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Director Richmond, for coming in your testimony. Great. So at this point, that is all the attendees that we have listed to speak on this bill. So with that, we will close the public hearing on LD 2162. Oh. Or actually, Director Richmond, if you're still on, are you the only person speaking from DVM? I know we also have General Young and Melissa Willett on, but are you speaking for the department today?
I'm the only one speaking from the department. They're on just in case.
Gotcha. Great. Thank you. Yeah. Great. So that's it for our attendees for today. So with that, we will close the public hearing on LD 2162. Representative Schneck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a motion that the committee moves directly into work session on this bill.
Second.
Okay. Did you say? Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. So we have a motion by Representative Schneck to go straight to work session. And I think we had a second from Representative McCray. So in order to take that vote, we'll have to take just a short recess and get 7 members into this room. And then the 7 members who are present in this room can cast that vote. So we'll take a short recess, and if the people in the State House remotely can come on down, and we'll take a vote with 7 in the room. Thanks. Okay, we're going to reconvene. We've got 7 members present in the room. The motion before the committee is to move directly to work session. The motion was made by Representative Schneck and seconded by Representative McCray. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote, and we'll vote by a raise of hands, and then we'll announce the totals after so that the public will know. So all those in favor of going directly to work session, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so it's unanimous. So that's Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, Representative Ackley, Representative Hickman, Representative McCrate, Representative O'Connell, and Representative Strom. Okay, we can have Janet just give us a quick rundown quickly, and then we can move to motions from committee members.
Certainly, I just wanted to let you know that I've done a little bit of research on this bill, and Rhode Island has a similar law that allows upgrades or consideration for whether you would get an upgrade if you had a general discharge or other than honorable discharge due solely to sexual orientation or gender identity or expression. New York also has a similar law that does the same thing as the bill, but it also covers the individuals with a lower discharge due to PTSD, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma. So those are the other states I could find. I just wanted to let people know, in case you're watching from home, including committee members from home, where you can find materials for today's meeting. So I'm going to try and screen share. Hopefully you can see.
Yeah, it's working.
This is the committee webpage. You get here by going to the Joint Standing Committee on Veterans Legal Affairs page, and then there's a link for committee related materials. The very top are all the reports received. If you scroll down, you'll find the meeting materials for today, including a whole bunch of information for this specific bill. Attached to Speaker Gideon's testimony, can you see the chart here?
Yep, we can see it.
Sometimes if you switch links, it doesn't show, so I just wanted to check. So attached to Speaker Gideon's testimony was this chart. It is actually created by Dave Richmond's office, the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services. And if you want to know the types of benefits we're talking about here, you would look across the top are the different types of discharge. On the very far right is honorable discharge and general, other than honorable. As you move left, it's the lower category of discharge. And you can see some of the benefits only have X's for eligibility in the first two columns on the far right. So then this bill would affect those types of benefits. If somebody had a lower grade discharge, they would ask for an upgrade. If they were successful after the process that the director puts in place, if the bill is enacted, then they might now qualify for these types of benefits. So this chart will show you what state benefits we're talking about. I don't know if you think it would be helpful. I know there was a proposed amendment that the sponsor supports. If you think it would be helpful, I could show you what the definitions are that are being discussed.
Sure.
So is the statute now showing?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So in the Maine Human Rights Act, there's a definition section. It's 4553 of Title V. The phrase gender identity is defined in subsection 5C. It's right here in the middle of the page. So if you want to know what gender identity means in this bill, you would reference this definition, and it means the gender-related identity, appearance, mannerisms, or other gender-related characteristics of an individual, regardless of the individual's assigned sex at birth. So the amendment would make sure that definition applies to the bill. It also applies the definition of sexual orientation, which is down here in 9C, which means a person's actual perceived heterosexuality, bisexuality, homosexuality, or gender identity or expression. Gender expression is in there, so Equality Maine proposed taking that out as separately listed in the types of reasons that you might have been discharged less than honorably. That's what I understand their amendment to do. And then I believe the other proposed amendment you heard during the public hearing was to change the report date on page 2 of the bill from January to May. That's all I have for you now.
Great. Thank you, Janet. Any questions from committee members? Representative Schneck?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. like to make a motion, ought to pass as amended with the report date on page 2, line 2, amended to May 1st, and including the amendment as proposed by Kate.
Okay, motion. Is there a second? Okay, so a motion is made by Representative Schneck and seconded by Representative Strom. Any further discussion from the committee? I'll just remind again that the vote can only be taken by the people who are present in the room, and all committee members watching from home will have 24 hours to call in their vote through the president or speaker. So seeing no discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. The motion before us is ought to pass as amended. All those in favor of ought to pass as amended, please signify. So it's unanimous of those present. And so the vote total, we have Representative Schneck, Representative Ackley, Representative O'Connell, Representative McCrate, Representative Hickman, Representative Strom, and myself, Senator Lucchini. So 7-0. Great, thanks everybody. And so next, that will conclude our work on that work session. Next, we will move to the next public hearing on our agenda, which is LD 2145, an act to help veterans access jobs, education, healthcare, and housing, and provide general support to veterans. And so the sponsor of this bill is Senator Carpenter. I believe we have him on the attendees list.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Senator. Good to see you.
Good to be seen. Welcome. Thank you. Nice to see all of you smiling faces down there. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present LD 2145. I really appreciate it. I'm Senator Mike Carpenter from Aroostook, and I'm here to present an act to help veterans access jobs, education, healthcare, housing, and to provide general support to veterans. Sort of a catch-all bill. We're currently in the middle of a public health crisis ravishing our world, our state, our communities. Right now, many folks are unemployed and wondering how they're going to pay for any of the services that we become so used to. Some had hoped that this would be the year when they could graduate from school, get a job in their field they dreamed of, or to buy their first home. Many of these expectations have now been put on hold for so many of us because of the pandemic. While the goals can be hard to achieve for anyone with or without a pandemic, they can be especially difficult for veterans who are returning after having served our country, putting their lives on the line and return now to the United States or to civilian life with a lot of dreams. And maybe we don't have enough support there. I remember when I came home from the service, it was daunting just to reacclimate to civilian life. LD 2145 is an attempt to fix some of that. We have in the state of Maine one of the highest percentages of veterans who are per capita to our population. And I know we can do a better job of supporting them when they and their families can have a successful transition back to civilian life. This bill was put on hold due to COVID-19 for a period of time. I was able to secure some funding from the Attorney General's office to help a group of veterans, homelessness problem up in Caribou. I'm very grateful to the Attorney General for his support. We were able to give them $100,000 to empower a group of veterans to have housing. As a veteran from Aroostook myself, I know what it's like to have nonprofit organizations such as the United Veterans of Maine to help get veterans back on their feet. I know we can do better. I know we can do more. Within this bill, there are several different buckets. And this is, as I said earlier, sort of a catch-all bill, created to determine how the state of Maine can better help veterans. Easier access to education, perhaps waiving certain licensing requirements for jobs where veterans are already qualified and licensed. It also includes an attempt to find housing for homeless veterans. My staff and I have been in close contact with a number of different state agencies, including Department of Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor, Department of Education, and the Department of Veterans Affairs to try to ensure this bill is fiscally responsible, but yet still may be able to provide some help for our veterans. By working with these groups, who have direct contact with veterans, we can find better ways to help our veterans, give them the support they need to live and work and grow and prosper in the state of Maine. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I won't take any more of your time. I will attempt to answer questions. Although I see Mr. Richmond's on, he probably is better qualified to answer questions than I.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions? Representative McCrate.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, Senator.
Good morning, Representative McCrate.
Good morning. I'm just trying to, this is listed as a concept draft.
Correct.
And it's very comprehensive. Are you looking at a process to establish which of these would be in a Bill of Rights, or is this part of a process to develop that, or are you proposing this is the Bill of Rights?
I would say it's part of a process. Again, Nadia from my staff has been working with various entities. Again, I would point to Mr. Richmond as somebody who I know has been very helpful to her in terms of trying to figure out where there are gaps and where there are holes in services. We have a lot of bills that come in that attempt to help veterans in one particular area or another, whether it's licensing, whether it's housing. And this bill is an attempt to maybe put in place a more comprehensive process.
Thank you. Any other questions from members of the committee this time? Oh, Representative McCrate.
Part two.
Part two.
Senator, as you know, there's a subcommittee process going on to look at what we can do about systemic racial inequality.
Correct.
And my question, I'm on one of those subcommittees, and your bill is one that we're looking at. And I wondered if you would be amenable to, it would be an amendment to include that the Maine Veterans Association administration would collect data as to veterans of color and follow up to see if this is doing what it's intended to do for that population.
I would have no objection to that at all. And if there would be a way to begin to determine if there is any disparity based upon race, color, or creed among our veterans coming back, absolutely, I would have no problem with that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from committee members? Seeing none. Thank you, Senator Carpenter.
Thank you. I will leave you now, and nice to see all of you. Representative Schneck, nice to see you. I've missed your bow ties. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Okay, I don't believe we have any other public members who signed up to testify, so we will turn it over now to Director Dave Richmond from the Department of Defense, Veterans, and Emergency Management. And Director, did you want to testify on this one? Great.
Yes, please. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, and honorable members of the Veterans and Legal Affairs Committee. My name is David Richmond. I'm the Director of the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services, and I'm here today to testify neither for nor against LD 2145, an act to help veterans access jobs, education, healthcare, and provide general support to veterans. The bill before you today is broad in the scope of veterans benefits addressed and would make changes to the benefits and services offered to Maine veterans. But I think it's important to also highlight the cross-agency collaboration currently being actioned within the state government relative to the items in this particular piece of legislation. Since 2014, the Department of Professional and Financial Regulation has had broad authority to accept the military credentials of members of the Armed Forces of the United States. These service members include active duty personnel, the reserves of the United States, Armed Forces, and the National Guard of any state. Military credentials reviewed and approved by DPFR may be used to obtain a professional license, upon presentation of satisfactory evidence by the veteran. And during the 128th legislature, the Bureau worked with the Maine Department of Labor officials and legislators to accelerate the occupational licensing process for veterans. Individuals who have a military experience and training and who wish to obtain an occupational license now receive appropriate credit for their military training and experience. The program allows for quicker, easier licensing for veterans who have a demonstrable military experience in the areas of boiler, electrical, fuel, plumbing, and healthcare. Qualified veterans also receive individualized assistance when connecting one-on-one to the Department of Labor's program staff to facilitate their transition. The Bureau also works closely with our partners at the University of Maine system and the Maine Community College system, both of which provide educational benefits to veterans and their dependents who meet qualifying criteria. Our agency has valuable relationships with the certifying officials of each of the University of Maine and community college campuses. Because of this partnership and our qualifying veterans reap the benefits of 100% tuition waiver of all mandatory fees for each of their dependents. The University of Maine system also developed a student military and mobilization and activation policy to support students called to duty in order to best accommodate students affected by deployments and training. UMS has also worked tirelessly to honor our veteran services, and we thank them deeply for their continued support. Just recently, the Bureau and the Department of Health and Human Services briefed this very committee on the status of our mental health care pilot program that was set to sunset last fiscal year. The pilot program has connected almost 2,000 veterans who presented to an emergency room across Maine with mental health services, no doubt impacting the veteran suicide rate in our state. Eradicating veteran homelessness has been an action item for the Bureau and the Maine Homeless Veteran Action Committee for the past 2 years. Our agency is statutorily required to provide veteran homelessness prevention and coordination, and we do so by working alongside our partnering agencies to reduce the number of homeless veterans across the state. Our homeless veteran coordinator has also worked with mayors across Maine who have signed on to the Mayor's Challenge, an interagency initiative that calls on cities, counties, and states to commit to ending and preventing homelessness among our veterans. So far, Auburn, Augusta, Bangor, Brewer, Biddeford, Lewiston, Portland, and Westbrook have joined the initiative. I say it often, but it rings true. Maine veterans are fortunate to have access to a host of resources throughout Maine. As Maine's primary public advocate for veterans and their families, we will assist in any way we can to ensure our veterans are adequately served and connected to the best services available across the state. Maine's veterans make significant contribution to our communities and our workforce, and the Bureau remains committed to working with our partners on the local, state, and federal levels to honor their service. I thank you for taking the time to hear testimony on this important topic, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have at this time.
Great. Thank you, Director Richmond, for your testimony. And I think, as you mentioned, the mental health pilot, I will just say that we're going to try to do a language review right after this for that. So if you want to stick around.
I will. That's great.
We won't hold you around all day. So we'll bump that one next. Any questions from members of the committee on this? Seeing none. Thank you, Director, for your testimony.
Thank you.
Okay, and that is all that we have for people signed up, right, on this. That's it for our list of attendees on this. So we'll close the public hearing on LD 2145. So next on our agenda, as we noted, we have a language review on another bill, LD 835, a resolve to extend the pilot program for providing mental health case management services to veterans. This was voted a unanimous ought to pass as amended, also with a new title. So we'll turn it over to our analyst, Janet.
Just a sec.
Yep. Great.
So hopefully you can see this. It's really big. Sorry. Okay.
Yep, we can see it.
This is the amendment to 835. It was originally a bill and was a concept draft. So the first thing the amendment does, and I'm sorry, it's a unanimous amendment. The first thing it does is change the title and turn it into resolve to extend the pilot program for providing mental health case management services to veterans. And it adds an emergency preamble. It's a little bit funny to read the emergency preamble where we say that it's likely to be enacted after July 1st, 2020, if it passes. You can just amuse yourself with that language for a moment. So then you see the language of the resolve from the previous legislature that established the pilot program. And what this amendment does is it actually amends that prior pilot program language. So even though it was a resolve, it's law. You can in fact amend a resolve. So that's what this 835 does going forward. So the first thing it does is it fixes the name, because you've changed the name of the Maine Bureau of Veteran Services. And so we get the correct name in there. Then it extends the pilot program from January 2020 of this year until June 30th of next year. It also requires, as you directed, to have a contract with a provider with experience providing services in Northern Maine. If you recall from the presentation back during the session, there are two providers right now. One is Easter Seals Maine and one is Health Affiliates in Maine. And you asked for somebody with experience for Northern Maine. If you move down, there's also an amendment in this paragraph 6, which describes what individuals would meet the criteria. And it's not only somebody who meets the federal definition of veteran, who might be a National Guard member, a reserve member who was deployed, but also anyone who has served or is currently serving in the National Guard or reserves. And this is designed to capture some more people who maybe weren't deployed before, and hopefully Director Richmond can correct me if I'm understanding that incorrectly. Then we fix the name of the Bureau again. And then originally there was a report at the end of the pilot program, but you asked for a mid-report in February of next year in case there was an opportunity or a need to extend the pilot program. Again, it would be on your radar screen as a legislature by having a report submitted to you. The next part are the funding. So to have the person in the provider in Northern Maine would be $200,000. And then to continue the funding for the other providers is $118,000. And I'm sorry, we don't have Health and Human Services on the call, but they had some monies in other pots, which is why I believe that this number is not as large as you might anticipate it to be, because they were using money they already had, and then they had some other money available, and they spoke about being very dedicated to make sure this would go forward if it had your support. And that's all there is to the amendment, other than the fiscal notes at the end, but it has the same numbers you saw before.
Great. Thank you, Janet, for walking us through the amendment.
Only other thing I would mention is you should have in your folders a letter back from Susan Collins. You all wrote to her. We sent the letter while you were out on the interim early on in March, and she wrote back. So you should have that too.
Yes, and we can forward that over to you, Director, if you haven't gotten a copy of that. So again, thank you, Janet, and thanks, Director Richmond, as well as the folks at HHS for doing this program. It's been a huge success and cost-effective. Obviously, anything with a fiscal note could be tough, but I don't see any harm in sending it down to appropriations and seeing if we can find any money to help fund this program to keep it going. Any questions from committee members on the language? Okay, seeing none, we will report that out once it's finalized, and it'll hit the floor if or when we have a special session. Great. Thank you, Director Richmond, for coming in today.
Thank you. It's good to see you all again. I appreciate it.
Great, thanks.
Bye now.
All right, so the last item on our agenda is a work session on LD 2131. And that's an act to correct errors, inconsistencies, and conflicts in and to revise the state's liquor laws. So I'm sure we'll all remember the large binder that we have on this bill, and I think Janet's and Karen have distributed that around. This was kind of the 2-year project that's been going on regarding the state's trying to go through the entire Title 28A, find any inconsistencies, and try to clear it up for businesses and everybody to operate more clearly. So Janet, if you want, we can turn it over to you. If
Certainly. You received, and you should have in your folders, a lengthy bill analysis. It's on blue paper. All that it really does is it takes the paragraphs of the summary and it shows you where in the bill and where in existing law you can find each of those items from the summary. That has been presented to you before. We have had a work session on this before. And then at that work session, Senator Lucchini indicated, because some technical amendments were proposed by myself, not only to catch a few other errors we noticed once the bill was printed, but also to align 2131, the bill before you, with 2 recently enacted laws. There was the certificate of approval bill, which required out-of-state spirit suppliers to obtain a certificate of approval. And then there was also the rewrite of the 3-tier prohibitions, or the 3-tier financial interest law for liquor manufacturers and wholesalers and retailers. And those 2 bills, because they were enacted in Title 28A, and this bill touches almost every section of Title 28A, there's a need for some conforming amendments to make them all work together. And so Senator Lucchini did promise you to have an amendment, and he does have one, and I can walk through that if you want, or whatever he directs.
Yeah, sure, Janet, that'd be great if you can hit the highlights. It was kind of based on a previous work session and input that we had during that work session. And I know Bablo's on here too, so after Janet walks through, we can bring them in as well.
Okay, I'm trying to get it up on my screen. One sec. Okay, here is the amendment. So I don't know how to do just highlights because every single section is completely different than the other ones. So I'll try to not be long, but just so you know what the amendments are. In all of these boxes that you'll see on the amendment, it's just a note from me to you to tell you what it does. And then what appears below the box is what the actual amendment will look like if you vote for it and it's printed. So the first technical amendment during the subcommittee process, I was informed, because I did not understand before, probably everybody else did, that agency liquor stores don't just have a license to sell spirits, they are required to also sell malt liquor and wine. And we fixed a lot of the inconsistent things throughout Title 28A on that, but we never actually put in the definition of agency liquor store, that they sell all 3 types of liquor. So that's what the first technical amendment is, to just fix that definition. The second technical amendment, this was actually proposed by the Bureau. The bill adds a definition of bed and breakfast guest. It's based off the definition of hotel guest, which is in current law, but moved around in the bill. And that definition of hotel guest specifically says it doesn't include someone who's registered just for the purpose of obtaining liquor. The Bureau suggested removing that from the definition, both in hotel guest and bed and breakfast guests. So here you'll see it being removed from bed and breakfast guest. Just so you know, the definition still says they have to be on the registry and they have to be a bona fide occupant of a room. So I don't think that people can just register solely for the purpose of obtaining liquor, but I don't know why the Bureau suggested it. That's just where that comes from. The next technical amendment was to just make The definition of certificate of approval holder was enacted recently through LD 2089, which was the Spirit Certificate of Approval bill. So you don't need to enact a definition here in LD 2131. So we just strike that section of the bill if you vote for this. The next proposed amendment section is the hotel guest one, which is the same as the bed and breakfast guest change. The next part is a technical amendment. One of the things that this bill does is specify in the law who can make low alcohol spirits products in Maine. That was not very clear in the law. And so throughout LD 2131, you see that clarified. Through a drafting oversight, we forgot to add to the definition of a tenant brewery that authority. So that's all this does. It's just conforming this definition to the rest of LD 2131.
Right, and that was something that we wanted to clarify earlier, just to get it. That's the current practice. We wanted to make it explicit in law, and we had missed this one.
Yeah, this is just the one definition we missed. The next part is another recommendation from the Bureau. So if you look here at 83C sub 2, this section of law currently mistakenly says that the Bureau establishes the wholesale and retail prices of spirits. That's not actually true. The retail prices of spirits are established by the State Liquor and Lottery Commission based on recommendations from the Bureau. The Bureau then calculates back using the discount rate the wholesale price of spirits. And so the bill was going to clarify and fix 83C to say that the commission does the retail prices and the Bureau does the wholesale prices. And the way that the bill does that is in the opposite order of the way this sentence reads. So the bill will say that the Bureau establishes the wholesale prices and then recommends to the commission the retail prices. The Bureau pointed out that those activities actually happen in the reverse chronological order. So this amendment just makes the sentence read in chronological order, the way that those activities occur.
Right, and this was a Bablo recommendation, so we.
Correct. The next one, if you look in your bill, the definition of spirits supplier includes in-state and out-of-state manufacturers of spirits. So when we were looking through the bill again, we discovered a couple of places where spirit supplier is listed next to the word manufacturer, but spirit supplier is defined to include a manufacturer. So that's a redundancy that we could get rid of. And that's one of the major things that LD 2131 does, is get rid of redundancies. So we just added this one to the list of redundancies to get rid of, if you so approve. Excuse me, I am coughing just because I need water. I'm not sick.
Yeah. And on this point, and we found a few locations where, since we made this new definition at the recommendation of Bablo for spirit supplier, if we say manufacturer, that really is just a duplication of what spirit supplier actually does. So we're just trying to eliminate all duplicative things as we try to clear up this statute.
Okay, the next part is from section 90 of Title 28A. This is the section of law that discusses how the contracts are awarded for the spirits wholesaler and for the spirits trade marketing contract. Representative O'Connell very kindly just brought me a cough drop. That's very sweet of you. Thank you. So for the spirits wholesaling contract, current law has a conflict. Current law says in subsection 2 of section 90 that the entity awarded that contract may not have any license to manufacture spirits in any state. But subsection 3 actually says that the entity awarded that contract can't have any license to manufacture alcoholic beverages in any state, which is a broader term than just spirits. I'm going to close the door because I can hear an echo here, and I want you to hear. So the conflict between the two subsections is one says you can't have a license about spirits, and the other one says you can't have a license about any alcoholic beverages. Over the subcommittee process, the subcommittee chose to resolve this conflict by adopting the broader prohibition and preventing this wholesale spirits provider from having a direct or indirect financial interest in any license to manufacture liquor. Remember that term includes spirits, wine, and malt liquor. The Bureau, when they looked at LD 2131, actually requests now that you resolve the conflict in the opposite direction and just prohibit the wholesale spirits provider from having a license or direct financial interest in a license to manufacture spirits. So that's the narrower term. In addition, James Bass testified on behalf of Pine State, and he asked, when you have this prohibition on having a financial interest or any interest in a license to manufacture spirits or liquor, he didn't weigh in on that issue. But when you have that, he asked that there be a de minimis exception so that if the entity has less than 1% of a share in the securities of a business entity that has the license, that they would still be fine. They could still bid on and be awarded the contract for a wholesale spirits provider. So if you were to adopt both of those, and Senator Lucchini's amendment does adopt both of those suggestions, this is how it would change. So any underlining you see or crossing out that you see that doesn't have highlighting is already in the bill, and the changes are what's highlighted. So this just changes it to the narrower prohibition just on spirits and also allowing for a minor investment. Just as an aside, you may or may not remember from the three-tier financial interest prohibition bill there, where a retailer isn't supposed to have an interest in a wholesaler and they're not supposed to have interest in the manufacturers. Those three tiers all have this 1% de minimis exception, and that's where Pine State said maybe that could apply here as well. The next part is you're going to see this next part of the proposed amendment in several different sections of the bill amendment that you have before you. If you look at current law, there are 3 different statutes, one for spirits, one for wine, and one malt liquor, that discuss taste testing events that are held at off-premises retailers. So I think of those as the ones that are held at Hannaford. And I mean, there are other ones, but that's just where I've seen them being held. And those 3 different statutes direct the off-premises retailer to ask for permission from the Bureau before conducting those taste testing events. And when they ask for permission, they're supposed to name in their request for permission the name of any licensed sales representative who will be pouring samples at the event, and to verify that that sales representative has taken an approved alcohol server education course. The bill, LD 2131, actually goes into all 3 of those statutes, and it actually specifies who can pour samples at those events. It can be the owner or employee of the off-premises retailer. It can also be the sales representative that's named in that request, or it can be an employee or the owner of the main manufacturer if the product was manufactured in Maine. The Bureau, in its testimony on this bill, requested that all 3 of these statutes be amended to remove the requirement that the name of the sales representative be listed in the request to conduct these events. And if you adopt that proposal, which Senator Lucchini's amendment does, it changes all 3 of those sections of law. The Bureau also requested that specifically for taste testing events involving spirits, that it not just be the main manufacturer who could pour, but any of the spirit suppliers could pour the spirit samples at those events. So if you look at that, how that works in section 460 of the law, which is the spirits taste testing event statute, it would now say that spirits can be poured only by the owner or employee of the agency liquor store, that's the off-premises retailer for spirits, or by a sales representative that has a license, or by the spirits provider, spirits supplier. You no longer need to name the main manufacturer because the main manufacturer of spirits is a spirits supplier and they're covered. Later on in section 460, you're going to get rid of the requirement that the request for the event list the name of the sales representative and verify that that person has successfully completed an alcohol server education course, because if you're not naming them in the request, you can't verify the non-named person that they've completed a course. The next part of the amendment affects section 502 of Title 28A, which is the statute that has the rules for the wholesale spirits provider. We were talking earlier about the prohibited financial interests. Section 90 of the law talks about how you actually award the contract. So in talking about awarding the contract, it doesn't actually create any rules for the entity that actually gets the contract. Section 502 are the rules for the entity that has the contract. So in 502, you say, okay, now you're the wholesale spirits provider. All of the time that you're the wholesale spirits provider, these are the rules you must follow. And this proposal for the amendment changes it so that they're not allowed to have a license in the state or another state for manufacture of spirits. It's no longer the broader term liquor. And it also has the minor investment exception that was requested by Pine State through James Bass. The next part of the technical amendment involves section 606 of the statute. If you look through that section, it talks about all the different purchasing of spirits. And if you look at the head note of the law right now, it says liquor bought from bureau. In speaking to Senator Lucchini as he was drafting this amendment, he pointed out that if you are an agency liquor store and you're going to be selling spirits to customers, you have to buy your spirits from the bureau. But if you're an on-premises retailer, like a bar, for example, and you are buying spirits, you buy it from a reselling agent. So that head note is not accurate. You don't always buy it from the bureau. So this is just a rewrite of the head note so that we don't suggest all spirits are purchased from the bureau. The next proposal was from Bablo itself, but it is very much a technical amendment. There is a subsection of 606, which says if you get a license or if you've been approved for a license from the bureau, you can buy your spirits in advance. You don't have to wait until the date of your license, because then you open up and you have nothing to sell. So there's some rewriting of this language in LD 2131 to make sure we change liquor to spirits and we clearly identify who these licensees are. And the way that we wrote 2131, we talked about an entity that has a license to sell spirits for on-premises or off-premises consumption. The Bureau very rightly pointed out that the only entity with a license for off-premises consumption is an agency liquor store. So their proposal to amend this subsection is to specifically refer to an agency liquor store. Don't use the phrase an entity with a license for off-premises consumption. Just use the actual name of the licensee. The next part of this amendment is to fix some conflicts with the three-tier bill that was recently enacted. That bill completely repealed a couple of sections of the three-tier statute, which is 707, because it replaced them. It basically rewrote that statute. So the sections of this bill, LD 2131, that wanted to amend those sections are going to be ineffective because those sections have been repealed and replaced. So we can just strike those right out of this bill. You don't want to amend a law that doesn't exist anymore, is basically the moral of that story. The next part is also a way of aligning the laws that were enacted in LD 2088, which is the three-tier bill, and LD 2089, which is the certificate of approval bill. Basically, in this 707, which is the three-tier prohibitions, there's a definition of out-of-state spirit supplier. As the three-tier bill enacted that definition, it just talked about entities that are out of state and that manufacture or distribute spirits to Maine. Now that we also passed, or excuse me, you also passed the certificate of approval bill, you can actually just say these are entities that have a certificate of approval under 1381. And writing the definition that way matches the way that other entities are referred to in 707. So it just makes everything flow a little bit better to make all the definitions match each other. The next part of this technical amendment, this is a section you'll note if you look through 2131, we tried to fix a lot of wording problems where there's a defined term in the statute and then a completely different term is used later on in Title 28A. One of those examples was alcoholic beverage. That phrase is not defined for Title 28A, and yet it appeared. So one of the things the subcommittee did was look every time in the law that it says alcoholic beverage and try and figure out what did it actually mean and insert the right word. Only this place we got it wrong. So this is a statute about wholesale licensees. If you recall, wholesale licensees distribute malt liquor and wine in Maine. We replaced in LD 2131 the phrase alcoholic beverage with just the word liquor, which also includes spirits. That's an error. It should only be replaced with malt liquor or wine because wholesale licensees don't have anything to do with spirits. So that's what this technical amendment to the bill does. This next section looks long, but it's very straightforward. If you remember, the definition of spirit supplier includes Maine manufacturers and out-of-state manufacturers of spirits. This is another place where we tried to get rid of redundancies in the law to take advantage of the new definition of spirit supplier. So it looks long, but that's all that that's doing is getting rid of redundant words. The next part of the amendment, this one's for Representative Hickman. Every time we talk about meals and food, I think of him because he made sure we were very consistent with the way we addressed that issue in the subcommittee. This is a statute that talks about removing partially consumed bottles of wine from restaurants if you go and you eat and then you want to take the rest of your bottle of wine home. In there, one of the things you'll see is it said full course meal. The subcommittee decided that that didn't make any sense and they defined the term full meal. So this section of the statute in LD 2131 is fixed. So it doesn't say full course meal, it says full meal. Unfortunately, the word meal appears later on in the sentence and we didn't put the word full in front of it. I don't think you have to make this amendment, but it makes a lot more sense to keep consistently using defined terms. So that's the proposal for this part. The next section of this proposed amendment deals with taste testing festivals. And at taste testing festivals, not only actual manufacturers of products that are currently sold in Maine, but actually entities called sponsored manufacturers who don't currently sell their products in Maine, but maybe want to get into the market. They can have their products sampled in Maine during these taste testing festivals. When we were looking through this statute, I was focusing on paragraph I here, and that talks about what types of malt liquor, wine, or spirits can be provided for these taste testing festivals by entities licensed in Maine. I didn't see anything about sponsored manufacturers. So we were going to add through the bill that sponsored manufacturers can provide their products for taste testing. Then when I was rereading it again, I looked and sponsored manufacturers appear in the very next paragraph. The only problem is the next paragraph only talks about sponsored manufacturers of wine or malt liquor. So this amendment takes the sponsored manufacturers out of paragraph I, leaves them in paragraph J where they belong, and adds spirits to that paragraph. This next one is one where I think the Bureau may wish to change this proposed amendment, but we'll see. Let me see if I'm on the right place. Yep. Okay, so 1055 is a section of statute that allows restaurants, certain restaurants, Class A restaurants and Class A restaurant lounges, to provide samples of different types of liquor to their customers right at the restaurant. In that section, it says under current law that spirits served as a sample have to be purchased from the state or the state's contracted wholesaler. During the subcommittee process, we had one day where we just looked at terminology, and the terminology states contracted wholesaler doesn't make sense. That entity is the wholesale spirits provider. So the bill was drafted to just fix the phrase to be the right phrase. Then now that we look at this again, you never actually purchase spirits from Pine State or the wholesale spirits provider, because Pine State or the wholesale spirits provider, if it's a new entity in the future, never actually takes title to spirits. Only the Bureau has the title to the spirits. So the technical fix as proposed in this amendment before you is to just say that you have to purchase the spirits from the Bureau. upon speaking to Greg Minio at the Bureau, we double checked because it doesn't make sense that the statute requires an on-premises retailer, this restaurant, to purchase spirits from the Bureau. The only entity that actually purchase spirits from the Bureau are agency liquor stores. And then the agency liquor stores themselves resell those spirits to on-premises retailers through a reselling agent license. And I believe that if Senator Lucchini is amenable, and if you all vote for this amendment, Babla would like you to say reselling agent here instead of Bureau, if that's all right with you. The next section is, if you remember, we were changing, excuse me, not we, but Senator Lucchini was adopting the Bureau's proposal to change all the taste testing statutes for off-premises retailers, to remove the requirement to name the actual sales representative who's pouring samples. And this is the 1205 is the wine taste testing statute. So this is the same change, it's just in the wine area. You remove the whose name is listed, and you remove the requirement to include the name of the sales representative on the request and to verify that they completed the training. 1207 is the malt liquor taste testing statute. So you'll see the same changes here.
Right, and these changes, sorry, Janet, were all just in the original bill. We wanted to, just to be clear, we wanted to streamline who can do testing and when and where. That's what we heard from the industry. And so what we're doing is changing the recommendations, as Babla said, to get rid of that name thing, as well as a few other changes. So,
yep. And so you just,
the bill itself.
yeah, you just have to do it in all three sections, so it looks longer than it really is. The next change, striking out this section, is again to fix a conflict with one of the bills that you enacted last session. This is the Spirits Certificate of Approval bill. It made some corrections to 1351. This bill, LD 2131, also made some corrections to 1351, but they're less comprehensive. So if you strike that provision of 2131, then you will keep the law that you recently enacted through 2089. So that's what that proposal does. The next one is to fix a conflict created through LD 2088, which is the three-tier bill. So the three-tier bill, like I mentioned before, three-tier prohibitions appear in section 707 of Title 28A. The three-tier bill that you enacted struck and replaced a lot of the subsections. So you need to fix some cross-references that appear here in another section of the title. This is actually the main manufacturing statute, and there's a grandfathering provision, and it has some cross-references to the three-tier bill, and you just need to fix the cross-references. There's another section here that you're striking to resolve a conflict from the three-tier bill that was enacted to because section 222 of LD 2131 was going to amend 1363, but you repealed 1363 in 2088. So there's no need to amend a repealed law. Another, you're going to see this is a theme. Another thing in this amendment is to fix another conflict with the Spirits COA bill that was enacted. It amended the same section of law as this bill, but it did it in a broader way, in a more comprehensive way. So by striking this provision from 2131, you can keep the law, the more comprehensive amendment that passed through the Spirits bill, the Certificate of Approval bill, excuse me. The next section, the Spirits Certificate of Approval bill enacted 1381. So that's new law that was created after the bill before you was printed. And that new law has some cross references to the transportation statutes within Title 28A. If you pass LD 2131 though, you're repealing and replacing them and rewriting them. So you're gonna need to fix the cross references. Just so you know, this type of amendment, if LD 2089 had been enacted before LD 2131 was printed, this change would already be made. You just have to make this change to make it internally consistent. The next two sections being struck are other sections which were amended by the Spirit Certificate of Approval Bill. Those amendments were more comprehensive, so it makes sense to strike the provisions from this bill and go with the ones that were recently enacted. The next section, this is where we get to the transportation provisions. I think this is the last section, so thank you for putting up with me through all of this. So if I'm going to scroll down to the important part. So we have provisions in LD 2131, which try and combine and make clearer all the requirements about who can import spirits or malt liquor or wine to Maine. And then once they're in Maine, who can transport them around the state. This is the in-state transportation of spirits statute that's in the bill. And it says, if you look here, that somebody can transport spirits that they imported into the state to a warehouse designated by the commission. That makes sense. You can send the spirits to the Pine State warehouse so they can be resold. Or you can send it to, under the bill, a winery, brewery, bottler, or rectifier. That makes sense. The spirits can go to a rectifier, sure. They can go to be bottled at a bottler. Winery and brewery were listed here because a winery and brewery might use those to make low alcohol spirits products or fortified wine. The Bureau pointed out that small wineries also make fortified wine and small breweries also make low alcohol spirits products. So it might make sense to just spell all of that out and be clear. Why are you sending your spirits to a winery? Because they can make fortified wine. Why are you sending them to a brewery? Because they can make low alcohol spirits products, and then to also mention the small versions of each of those. So that's what 2 does. It allows spirits that have been imported to Maine to be transported to those entities. And then under this next part, C, a spirit that has been manufactured in Maine can also be sent to those entities. So that's what this portion of the amendment does. And I didn't draft the summary yet because I'm waiting to see what you all do with this amendment.
Great. Thank you, Janet, for walking us through that amendment. I think this amendment's helpful just to see the source of everything, how Janet has boxed it out. You can see, if you remember our previous work session, I know it's been months now since we did it. We had a pretty lengthy bill analysis. So if it was taken from the bill analysis, it's described as technical issue from the analysis, or if it was taken from Bablo's testimony, it's explained as testimony from Bablo. And then, as Janet pointed out, we had 3 bills and we knew we'd have to pass them sequentially so that they didn't conflict with each other. And then now that they're passed, there's a number of changes we had to make for this one to work alongside that one. So if we can see, does anybody have questions for Janet on that now? We can also bring in Bablo in a minute. Questions? Okay, so Director Minio, I think we have you on here. Can you?
Yes,
can you
sir.
see us? Great.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Thank you, Senator Lucchini, Representative Schneck, members of the committee. Great to see some of your faces. I hope all is well with you and your families. First of all, I just wanted to point out thanks to Janet for asking the 2 questions yesterday and allowing us to answer those. And those concerned what Janet just went through in 1055 and also 2073. One concerning the reselling agents as the only ones who can sell spirits to on-premise licensees. Then, of course, the other one concerning the transportation. So, Janet, thank you for doing that. I think that clarified quite a bit. And I just wanted to take a minute just to thank the subcommittee and the committee for the hard work on this and allowing Bablo to weigh in when appropriate. This was a long road, and we thank you for your patience and your hard work. And Janet, thanks so much. This was just amazing work that you did for us. And I would just say on behalf of the Bureau that we are thankful that you were on board during this whole thing. So that was really all I had, Senator. I just wanted to thank everybody for their hard work. And certainly I'd be happy to take any questions, but I really think you've got this thing laid out pretty well. So thank you again.
Great. Well, thank you, Director Minio. Appreciate that. And certainly I'll get you right back. We appreciate your participation this whole time, as well as Larry's. It's been super helpful. And of course, Janet did tons and tons of work to put this all together. So super helpful. I see a question, looks like from Senator Searway.
I just wanted to ask a quick question to you, Director. I know we had at the very end the few questions, and I guess those were the last two. Is that what we were talking about back when we? I know there was a couple of little glitches still wanted to correct. Is that the two that you got done? I just wanted to make sure.
If I may, Senator, those were the two that I was referring to. Yes, that's exactly right, Senator Serway.
And I just wanted to thank you for the hard work too. I mean, there's so much in this to cover, and you know, I don't know what we would have done without Janet. Janet did a great job on this.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. Any other thoughts or questions on this? Yeah. Representative Schneck.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we accept this bank of amendments on LD 2031.
As described in this yellow paper.
As described in the yellow
kind of walk
sheets.
through. Okay, we have a motion of ought to pass as amended. Is there a second? Second. Representative McCray. Okay, so we have a motion ought to pass as amended by Representative Schneck and seconded by Representative McCray.
May I just clarify for the record? I believe Representative Schneck is moving the yellow amendment with the one clarification from the Bureau that the restaurants purchase their spirit samples from the reselling agent.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank
so that's on page 9, so everybody has it. It changes Bureau to reselling agent. Any further discussion or questions? Representative Ackley.
Mr. Chair, do you need us in the room in order to cast this vote?
Yep, we'll need everybody down again. So if there's no discussion, we can take a quick recess to get everybody down. Great, thank you. All right, we're back. We do have 7 members present in the room. Is there any other discussion before we proceed to a vote? Seeing none, the motion before us is ought to pass as amended. All those in favor of ought to pass as amended, please signify. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's unanimous, 7-0 of those present. And again, those present were Representative Strom, Representative O'Connell, Representative McCrate, Representative Hickman, Representative Ackley, Representative Schneck, and Senator Lucchini. All good, Karen? Thank you. Thanks, Karen. And Janet, is there anything else that we need to cover? I think that does it for our agenda for today.
That's all I know about.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, everybody, for coming in and participating, and thanks to the public for their patience with us with the technology, and thank you, Director, and all the agencies who came in today.
Thank you.
We'll be
Thanks,
adjourned.
everybody. Thanks.
Great.
Be well.
Take care.